Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a fantastic day. It's a little gloomy here in Southern California today, but it can be a nice day later, right?
Absolutely. Well, luckily it's not June because normally there's an ongoing June gloom.
Yeah, it's the weather hit and miss here. But it's getting hotter though.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
could say
it's
that.
getting
I think that's the downside sometimes of Las Vegas is it can go from cold straight into hot, kind of
out.
skip over warm. I enjoy it more when it goes into warm. The spring, or at least that was the enticement. The first time I was here, I thought, oh, spring is so great. Haven't had too many of those.
Oh, not really. Or you can hide in the casinos.
I guess that's
Not.
by design. That's why the casinos do so well, right? It's where the cool
Yes.
air is, right? And then they have a way of kind of connecting you from one casino to the next. But anyway, we should say where we are. Well,
Right.
welcome everyone. You're tuning in to another episode of Wealth Doctors. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, and with me is Dr. Andrea Le. And so we are going to talk to you today about our favorite topic, using different tools to help you create financial and generational wealth. Today's topic is going to be great. We're talking about life insurance, but we were talking offline about H HBC H
HSBC, live
HSBC.
in Hong Kong. Yes.
HSBC, yes. And HSBC issued what is now noted as the largest whole life policy in the amount of $250 million. The unnamed person, as well as family beneficiary, uh, uh, those names were withheld. But the idea was that this policy was issued as a part of the estate planning purposes and intentions to ensure that the ultra wealthy family was able to continue their wealth transfer for future generations. So, what say you? What do you think about this?
You know, and life insurance, especially cash value life insurance, is a great strategies nowadays. People are utilizing that vehicles, especially the high net worth individuals or ultra high net worth individuals, utilizing this vehicle to for legacy planning, for estate planning, and for generational wealth. So not a lot of people it's underutilized because not a lot of people know about it. The tax advantage that it provides, the lifetime income, the living benefits, and much more compared to other investment vehicles that you could possibly have in stock market or investment in mutual funds and other investment vehicles that you may have in your portfolio. So HSBC Life in Hong Kong issued $250 million life policy, a whole life policy for these individuals. And this is not the only big, but others in 2014, they based on the record, they issued $201 million policy as well, and 100 millions in the 1990s. So we're talking about like 30 years ago, people utilizing this vehicle to multiply their health, their wealth, and protection. Going back, way back, Walt Disney, J.C. Penney, Foster Farm, all utilizing these vehicles, very vehicles, to access the money to fund their business venture.
As well as, I always tell the story about, my grandmother was one of those folks that knew how to use her life policies effectively. And that was, part of why she made decisions about how my whole birthing experience and all of those things would transpire, because she was willing to make an investment using her policies to have that experience be what she wanted it to be. And she wasn't limited to what healthcare or what have you would cover. She used her life
Very
policy.
smart lady.
Yeah.
Yes.
I said it's amazing, amazing, right? It's amazing
Yeah.
how we go through these. But think about it. So many families still think that if they have a life insurance policy, and oftentimes they don't because they're worried about, they don't want to do planning because they're thinking that it's just about death. Oftentimes that leaves them ill
It's
prepared,
more than that.
having appropriate death benefits or things in place. But it's definitely, that's a small part of it. It's really about planning your legacy. And, people have used their policies to make contributions to support their various causes, to support the ongoing existence of their foundations, charitable interests, things of that nature. So it really is a tool. I mean, we know that oftentimes many of the commercial banks, where it is that they're holding funds is in policies, using
And life
policy
insurance
to
policies. Yeah.
exactly
Mhm.
to be able to leverage the returns that those policies are able to generate in a more secure manner. So again, I always say to clients and colleagues, if the bank doesn't have their money in the bank, why is yours there?
Right. I mean, you can keep enough for emergency funds and
Right.
things like that, but the rest, you should diversify it out and have yourself a vehicle that generate more money, put your hard money at work,
Yes.
so that you can get more protections. We're talking about, protecting your family, legacy planning, estate planning, funding your business venture, becoming your own bank,
Yes.
lifetime income, tax-free lifetime income, emergency fund, where you can just access the money at your discretion
Mhm.
whenever and whenever you need it.
Mhm.
Funding college planning, buying a house, buying a car, have a wedding, have a
Mhm.
vacation. All of these you can um, utilize life insurance policy to fund all of those needs and wants that you in your life, basically. So we're talking about life insurance policy. There's so many reason why you should have one for yourself and your family. So in this episode, we're going to talk about common questions about life insurance. The first common one is, what is my primary reason for buying life insurance? Why do you need it?
Oh, yeah, I think it's basically to set that initial foundation. What are
Mhm.
the immediate resources and protections that are required? And the great thing about so many policies these days is that they include things like riders that help to protect you in the event of uncertainties. I shared
Long-term
earlier,
care, right?
long-term care, not
Mhm.
only long-term care, but things that happen that cause you to be unable to produce your general income. So disability policies, to protect your earnings. If something happens that causes an interruption prematurely, to
Right.
and we've talked about in business like key man policies, or using a policy to back up a buy sell agreement, in partnerships and other type of business relationships, in addition to making sure that you've taken care of your family. And I think that that's the part that, again, my mom used her life insurance policy to make sure that if something were to happen, the house was paid off, the mortgage was paid off by
That's
the
the most
policy,
important one.
so
Yeah.
that the house transferred free and clear. So those kinds of strategies are important considerations, as well as if you have, grandchildren, or if you're planning for a future, your legacy, to make sure that you put proper resources in place to help facilitate their needs as well.
Yes, absolutely right. And it is essential that you establish your objective and goals. Why do you need life insurance? The most reason is to purchase life insurance to provide your financial security for your family, protect your children, protect yourself. People getting it to cover final expenses, funeral expenses, or paying out debts, or as an investment vehicles that you can generate income and compounding interest over the years and access tax free. The most important is tax free income for life. and people are living longer and longer, right? So we utilizing these vehicles right here to meet your goals and your objectives in the long run. um, so so consider what's your primary reason, and
Mhm.
then consider what type of life insurance is best for you. What do
Right.
you think is the best life insurance for you is?
And I think that's the thing that a lot of times people are confused, because it's not one size fits all.
Exactly.
Just like with anything else, everyone has a unique situation. And so you want to consider all of your unique variables. Do you have real estate? Do you have stocks? Do you have children? What are the age of your children? Do you have other dependents? Maybe it's not that it's about children, but do you have others that are dependent upon you, your income, and your existence? How do you plan to support those others who need you, to take care of them in some form or fashion, right? And just thinking about, what are some of, as you mentioned earlier, the life uh, experiences that you encounter. You talked about being able to be your own bank, being able to finance your own wedding, or the down payment on a new property, the investment in a business, to pay for a college tuition, to teach your children, or to help them finance their first vehicle purchases. There are all types of benefits, to take time and travel the world,
Exactly.
to be able to finance again those types of things, experiences, desires. So, what are some of those things that you see in front? And then also this idea of, yes, you might be blessed to live full life. So, if you're still running around here at 120, as I plan to be, what will
Right.
you have available in order to support that?
You want to plan that you have enough income and financial support to last you that long, or whatever endeavors that you have, travel the world, meeting new people, and have fun, have a good retirement life. So what type of insurance is best, it really depends on what you want. There are term life, permanent life insurance that provide you cash living benefits, and others, benefits that comes along with the permanent life. Also, consider if you have a business. Do you want more protection for your business in case you something happen and you need to pass that along to your family, or buy out a portion of your partner? So those are the things that you want to consider, um, when you start planning for what type of life insurance is best. Sit down with the professionals who have experience in this field, that give you various options depending on your goals and objectives, and identify what's the most best solution for your particular needs. It's not one size fit all, like you said, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's so funny. I was going through some items in my office cleaning up, and I saw a comprehensive overview that I prepared for someone. Man, over 20 years ago, I'd really forgotten that I had worked, on this detailed plan. But what I loved about the plan is that I looked at everything. I looked at them, the summary of their family makeup, their immediate family, their extended family, their assets that they owned, the assets that they planned to procure, and really put them on a path to really kind of think about all of the things. And also the other thing is if you have a life insurance policy, or if you have other policies, you want to check and make sure that your policies have all of the current, if you will, bells and whistles. Because again, if your policy is over a certain amount of time, there have been improvements in different offerings. It's just like anything else. Those
Underwriters.
that are putting together policy offerings are doing it based upon what they're seeing in the market. What they're seeing is not only the life cycle of the people that are procuring the policies, but also the needs that are emerging across this period of time. And so, again, as with anything else, as technologies and all of these improvements happen, so do the ability to understand what benefits are most important versus, how a policy should function and the ease of access, for example, to the liquidity in a policy. And again, different policies for different reasons. So just like when I tell people about raising capital or funding, a venture, it's a layered strategy. You don't use all the same capital for just any purpose. You have to really understand if you have equipment requirements. I don't want to use capital that cost a lot when I can basically use equipment financing that's aimed at financing equipment. So it's priced according to that particular use, as opposed to using capital that would be more expensive if it's uncollateralized. So it's really understanding those details and putting together, if you will, what's your life plan? What's your life plan and what's your legacy plan?
Exactly. I mean, there's so many options out there that it's hard to know which one is the best for you, because it's really dependent on what you want and what you need. And that leads to the next question. How much coverage do you need? How do
Well,
you determine that? How much coverage do you need to cover the coverage amount enough to replace your income?
which is interesting because it makes me think back to the article on the $250 million policy for the ultra wealthy. A $250 million policy on an individual. I mean, what must that estate be worth? It would have to be, you figure, at least $1 billion or
At
half
least,
$1 billion
yes.
organization or business that this person is looking to protect. And so again, thinking about, what are the needs that you'll have. And not only that, because of course we deal with things like premium financing and stuff for high policies in part of the estate planning where there's going to be tax consequences. Again, we don't know what the tax rates will be depending upon where you are and when these things happen. So again, when you're doing a plan, it's oftentimes a consideration to include a policy element that will cover any of the taxes that may arise as part of that estate planning. Again, to ensure that the assets that you want to transfer to your heirs, your beneficiaries, are able to do so seamlessly.
Right. I mean, to determine how much you need is quite simple, actually. To number one, enough to replace your income. Do you have debts to pay off? Do you have to cover future expenses, such as your children's educations or your spouse's retirement? So those are the things that you need to take into consideration to determine how much you need. But the common rule of thumb is to aim a coverage that has about 10 to 15 times of your annual income. So let's say you make 100,000 a year. You want to get a coverage at least a million or 1.5 million. Or in some cases, you may need more or less. Depends. But depending if you have businesses that you additional resources for your family in case something happens. So these are just generals common rule of thumb, but it's dependent on your individual needs as well. So when you sit down with a financial professionals, they can plan it out for you to make sure that you have enough coverage to cover everything that you need in your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you must take into consideration that today's dollars will not be the same value tomorrow as a result of inflation. And again, the uncertainties around tax requirements. So you want to make sure that you anticipate those variables in your calculations as well. So, what would be $1 million policy? What would that require in true dollar value 10 years from now? That's really a different number than even that 10x of your current income. When we look at not only inflation, People have been talking about, and we've noticed tremendous inflation. Cost of everything is up in so many places, and that is a reflection of basically what your buying power allows, right? If things cost more, then your dollar is not allowing you to purchase at the same level. And we see that, we see that significant inflation that has happened and that will continue to happen. Things that we buy today, in another 10 years, things that we think are
It
inflated right
changes.
now, in 10
Yeah.
years,
Mhm.
they'll continue to change. So those things will cost more. And so at the same time, you want to factor all of those things in and really work from, I always say, begin with the end in mind. What would you like your later years to look and feel like in terms of your living, as well as the rest of the folks who are depending upon you? What would you like to see them experience and have available as resources to sustain their lifestyles?
Right. Inflation is a huge factor when you planning these kind of financial instruments, because 10 years, 20 years from now, we're talking about the rate of inflation about 2%. It is more now, but average about 2 to 3% per year. Over the course of 10, 20 years, your money buying power is losing by years later. So when you plan this, take into that consideration, and also how much can you afford for your life insurance policy. And it's really depend how you budget your financial tools, and also your income, to make sure that you have diversified, you have enough for your emergency saving, your saving your retirement. You need to consider that, to set money aside for retirement, because a lot of people put money aside for important, like retirement, right? They just, the money comes in, it pays bills and expenses, and at the end of the month it's all gone because we didn't plan longer. But if you think you have difficulty planning right now when you're young, is it easier to plan when you get older?
Typically, no, because
Oh,
the
right.
thing is that as you age, sometimes you have additional variables. One, you may have limited ability to either work, or you may have other conditions. Oftentimes, people are faced with chronic conditions that minimize their years of productivity. So planning for those things, I always say it's important to think about, what is it that I have as my immediate needs? What are my, next 3-year type of needs, and what are my long-term goals and needs and objectives? And that's really why it is we decided to offer this type of programming. This conversation was really because we wanted to share from our both experiences, our personal journeys, seeing that you can have a great so-called plan and life happens. So when life happens, how do you adapt? How do you adjust? How do you pivot to the realities of what life has presented and reset? Sometimes you have to reset,
Right.
those financial intentions, because things happen along the journey. It doesn't just, as someone said to me earlier, years ago, that I'm not a climber, I'm not a mountain climber, but she used an analogy that even if you're climbing mountains, you don't just start at the bottom and climb straight to the top. You have to climb up to a point, and then you kind of cheat back to get to the next level. And so I feel like that's reflective of the journey through life. Is sometimes you feel like you're going ahead, and then you encounter a particular circumstance that feels like it's a step back, and it can be, but it's not a step back to leave you back. It's a step back to allow you to reflect, take in new information, kind of recast your future and your fortunes, and then to figure out, based on this new set of information, now what are the new decisions that I should make in light of that new information?
Right. I look back in the last 20 years, and even longer. I wish I someone had told me about these information, what I know now.
Yeah,
If I had known it when I was in my 20s and started a plan for myself and started, something,
yeah,
I would have been way more ahead, right? I mean, we don't get taught with this information in school at all. Not how to plan your financial life. We learn technical stuff, but for financial planning, saving, and that is the most important in our life, because all those years of working, you generate money to do what? To pay for expenses, to save, to have a good life. But if we don't start out knowing what we should do and what's the most effective way to do it, and maximize the potential of earning and maximize your saving, those are the things that that you can get advice from your financial professionals, and they can give you tips how to do it. And join us here, and send us questions or send us uh, comments and things like that. We would love to connect with you and see what we can do to help each other to grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just as Dr. Andrea shared, you can email any questions that you have for us to info at wealthdoctors.us, info at wealthdoctors.us. And we'd be happy to answer your questions.
Right. Yes, send us, even through Facebook. We live in Facebook and LinkedIn, so just send us a comment and we happy to respond back. Another question that I got a lot, even when I started out doing this, the question I had was, what is the insurance company financial stability? Will they gonna be there tomorrow when I need my money, right? 10 years, 20, 30 years later, when I need the money, or when for legacy planning, that can be longer for the future generation. Are they going to be there?
Absolutely. And that's a very important consideration. And that's why we look at organizations that have a certain rating and a level of stability. So the organizations that are providing the policy solutions, it's important to make sure that they have a certain rating and financial stability and historical performance around that stability of being able to exist. I think that it's important, when we think about what were considered the blue chip organizations, those organizations that live on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's
Right.
because they've been structured and put in place certain tools and resources to ensure that long-term stability.
Yeah, so it's when you research to find out what the best company out there, you want to choose an insurance company with strong financial track record. Were they able to meet their obligations, and the company ratings? Company rating agencies such as like AM Best, Moody's, and S&P Standard and Poor's to ensure the company financial stability that meets all of as its obligation in the past and the future to come. So, and also, people put money in the bank, right? If the bank goes under, the FDIC insure up to what, $250,000 backed by the government. In an insurance industry, which is a highly regulated industry, there is an insurance guarantee association. So if that company is going under or insolvent, this association, depending on what state you are in, can guarantee up to 300,000 for your policies or annuities plan that you have. 250 for the annuity. So it's safe. It's safe to put your money, and basically based on the stability of the company. And all the companies that we work with have a positive track record, and they've been out there for 100+ years. So they have gone through all of those financial turmoil, right? The World War I, II, pandemics, and 2008 market crash, they'll survive. During the 2008, there was $5 billion loss in the 401k, but not one penny lost in the insurance industry for annuities.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of people experience major setbacks, and again, in some cases, if you didn't move the money at that time, some of them were paper losses, but if you needed resources at the particular time that the markets were down, then a lot of people found that they lost a significant amount of value, and value that took many years to create. So if you had been contributing into a mutual fund, or a stock backed policy, or a program, your 401k backed, and your diversification was heavily into those asset classes and they were down, then unfortunately, maybe it took 20 years to build up a certain value and 50% of that value was wiped out. Maybe you were planning to retire within the next 5-10 years. You don't have the same time horizon to rebuild the value that you've lost, because you'd have to rebuild the loss plus add to that value in order to get back on par. And so a lot of people found themselves in situations that, again, they didn't anticipate because of those market shifts. And so it's really important to think about that again when you're putting together a comprehensive plan. You want to sort of think about the risk. What are the risk profiles of the various allocations you're making with your resources? And how will those allocations impact your overall objectives? Because again, the economy is cyclical. And so there
right.
will be bull and bear market cycles. There will be inflation. That's a reality. Taxes, those are realities. You're going to have to factor in those variables. And then there's some unknown considerations that we don't have. We don't know exactly what the tax base will be the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And we don't know what that means for each of us individually in terms of what bracket you find yourself in based upon, again, your investments, your asset allocations, the factors that allow you a tax base and reduction. And I think so often these are the things that, again, as you mentioned, touched on earlier, financial literacy is more than just understanding the technical elements of accounting and, the theories behind finances, understanding, economic cycles. It's about how do I then take that information and apply it into my day-to-day life and planning. And I can't just plan for the short term. What if you get to experience a long life, a life of longevity? You don't want to outlive your money and your resources. And so you have to begin to plan for those things. It's kind of like I was thinking, yesterday I was going out for a walk and it was early evening and the wind was blowing. And I said, well, it seems nice. I could go out without a jacket, but maybe I'll bring a light windbreaker because I would rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Right.
It's really the same thing, when we think about planning and anticipation. You'd rather have the security and not need it than to need it and not have it available. And as we age, again, the cost of what a policy, that's being underwritten, is going to consider different
Or
factors,
underinsured,
our
which is not
age, our health markers and all of those things. So a policy that you're able to put in place for your kids when they're young and at their, best health markers is going to be priced differently than a policy that as you begin to age is going to be. So that changes also the variable of what's happening with your investment and cash value, especially if you're using some of the whole life policies as a tool for your overall investment strategies.
right. It's important that you ask questions and thoroughly research your options and find out what your goals is and your needs are, and what kind of protection it provide you in the future. So, you know, remember, life insurance is not a one size fit all solution. So consult with your trusted financial advisors and get the best plan for yourself based on your situations. Oh, wow, look at the time. We are running out of time. And I just want to say thank you for joining us today. And we are here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Please join us. Send us an email, text, or a comment, anything that you want to learn or wanted to know. If you already have a plan in place, we recommend to review it to make sure it is the best plan for you, because over the years, things changes. Life happens. It changes. So reach out to us, or consult with your financial professionals and have them help you with that process. Again, email us. A comment can be sent to info@welldoctors.us. Have the most wonderful day.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.